Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayh wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilhu fala hadiya lahu. Wa nashhadu anna sayyidina wa nabiyyina wa maulana Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Sallallahu tabaraka wa ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In this week's lesson we are going to touch on three topics. The first topic is a continuation from last week's topic about taqdeer. Number two, the second topic would be regarding prophethood and resurrection, and the third topic would be, if we have time, we'll then make a start or restart the hadiths from Kitab al-Iman and the Book of Iman. Now the first topic, as I was saying, which is a continuation of the topic from last week, is regarding taqdeer. Now I mentioned in last week's lesson that taqdeer or fate is something which has been prescribed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before we were even created by Allah, before this world and this earth came into existence. Taqdeer and fate had already been written by Allah. And it's mentioned quite clearly in the Holy Quran where Allah says, وَمَا يَعْزُبُ الرَّبِّكَ مِن مِثْقَالِ ذَرَّةٍ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فِي السَّمَاءِ وَلَا أَصْغَرَ مِن ذَلِكَ وَلَا أَكْبَرَ إِلَّا فِي كِتَابٍ مُبِينٍ. Which means that anything which happens in this world, any kind of moving of an atom, any kind of little thing which happens in the earth or in this world, it's already been written and mentioned illa fi kitabim mubin, in the preserved tablet, the Lawh Mahfuz. So as I was saying, that taqdeer, something which has been written before, anything small, anything big which happens, Allah has already decreed and decided from before. Now one of the brothers posed a question last week about, there is a hadith which can be found in Tirmidhi, Sunan Ibn Majah, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that taqdeer does not alter except through du'as and through supplication. In other words, what this hadith is saying is that if somebody was to make a dua or was to supplicate, then taqdeer or fate may change or may alter. Or as mentioned in another hadith, that if you do certain good deeds, good actions, there's more barakah or blessings in your umr, there's an increase in your age and so on. Now these two hadiths here contradicts what I've just said now, and also contradicts what I said last week, because I said nothing, Allah has decided everything before the creation of this world. Even like us attending this gathering and this lecture and this bayan, Allah has already written from before that these 10, 12 brothers who have attended and the sisters who've attended, it's written in taqdeer that they're going to attend on the 2nd of September at this particular venue. So everything has been written before. However, what does then these two hadiths refer to when it says that dua or supplication can actually alter taqdeer? Or number two, sometimes good deeds, good actions can also increase the age or our lifespan. Because again, as I explained last week as well, lifespan and age is also something written by Allah before we were created. So what does then this hadith mean, or is indicating to, when it says that by doing good deeds, good actions or du'as and so on, then a person's lifespan may increase? Now to answer this particular objection or question, There are two types of taqdeer, or there are two types of fate. The first one is called mubram, and the second one is called mu'allaq. Now, the first type, taqdeer mubram, is basically that fate which is basically 100% guaranteed, 100% like sure, and it's never ever going to change. Whereas number two, mu'allaq, is those types of taqdeer or fate which can actually alter depending on whether that person was to make a dua, depending on good deeds, on good actions. Now you may be thinking that, oh, isn't that the same? What's the difference between the two? I'll give you an example. It's like just say there's a lecture going on. So just say it's in the diary that every week on a Sunday there will be a lecture, there will be a talk. So that in a way is like taqdeer mubram, that okay, from the beginning of January all the way until December, we've written down in the diary that there's going to be lecture Sunday evening. But the speakers, they're going to rotate. So one week is going to be this speaker. The second week is going to be that speaker. Sometimes that speaker who was penciled in to come for the first week of January can't come. Then we get the second speaker coming and taking his place. So that's what I mean by mubram and mu'allaq. That mubram is something which is already 100% sure, definite and so on. And mu'allaq is something that it can change through du'as, through actions and so on. Now, you may be thinking that doesn't that then contradict that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written everything from before? It doesn't, because the way we look at it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, before He created this world, He knew that Abdul Rahman, or He knew that Fatima, or He knew that Zayd, or He knew that Bakr on such a day is going to make a dua, is going to supplicate, and because of that supplication, something which was meant to happen is not going to happen. Everyone understood this? So basically what I was trying to say is that with the way we look at it through the hadith is that, yeah, fair enough, something was meant to happen, that we were meant to go outside and we're going to get knocked by a car or something like that. Let's say it was meant to happen, but we did dua and we saved ourselves. But what's he trying to say here, looking at it from the bigger picture in terms of Allah has written taqdeer and knows what's going to happen, is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that such and such a person on such and such a day, such and such a time, such and such an area, such and such a city is going to make this dua, is going to make this supplication, and that thing which was meant to happen is not going to happen, but this is going to happen because of the dua and the supplication which you made. So in that particular way, we kind of then reconcile between what I just explained before about our beliefs on taqdeer, and also about this particular hadith of duas changing or altering taqdeer. So alhamdulillah, that was the first topic. Now the second topic, just continuing a bit more on the Aqidah side, and then inshallah we'll go back to the hadith. I want to mention two things here, but very briefly, because we're going to inshallah put more meat on the bone when we look at other hadiths under this section on Imaan. Two things here I want to mention about prophethood, risalat, and number two, resurrection. And what I want to mention is basically I want to give all of you a kind of like a contrast, or a kind of like comparison, what the way we look at risalat and prophethood, and the way the other religions look at prophethood and risalat. Now let's begin with Islam. Now in Islam, we believe that all the prophets are human beings. So that's our Aqidah, that all the prophets are human beings. Qul innama ana basharun mithlukum, that I am just a bashar, a human being like you. We also believe, number two, that all the prophets of Allah are all ma'soom, which means that they are sinless. They cannot commit sins, and nor can they think about committing sins. Sometimes we get urges to commit sins, but then we think better of it. But when it comes to prophets, they can't commit sins, and nor do they have the urge and the desire to commit sins. So this is what we believe about prophets. Now let's have a look at the pagans of Makkah, the mushrikeens. Now the mushrikeens, when it came to prophethood, they couldn't understand, they couldn't believe that how can a human being be a prophet? Many places in the Holy Quran they would say, look, if he was a prophet, then Allah would send angels. Why is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sending human beings as prophet? So that's their mentality, that's their belief. So those who are mushrikeens, those who ascribe partners with Allah, because they're looking at it through logic, atheists and so on who don't believe in God, they look at logic. If you say to them that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a prophet, they will say, oh, why is Allah sending a human being as a prophet? He should send an angel or someone out of this world to be a prophet and a messenger of Allah. And again, I don't want to go into too detail here, but Mufti Sahib was also explained before as well, and it's mentioned in many places in the Holy Quran about the reason why, the hikmah, the wisdom, why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't send angels as prophets. So that's the mushrikeens when it came to prophethood. Let's have a look at the Jews. Now the Jews, when it came to prophethood, they believed that prophethood is something which is unique with the Banu Israel. In other words, only the Banu Israel race can be prophets. No one else can be prophets. Anyone outside the Banu Israel, i.e. the Arabs, they cannot be prophet. It has to be from the Banu Israel. But also something sinister about their beliefs is that they also, na'uzubillah, believe that all prophets can lie. They believe that all prophets can commit sins. They believe all prophets can deceive. All prophets can fabricate. That's what they believe. And the prophets they didn't like, they think, oh, he's lying, he's not telling the truth. They would kill him. Simple. It's mentioned in the Quran even. فَبِمَا نَقْضِهِمْ مِيثَاقَهُمْ وَكُفْرٍ بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ وَقَتْلِهِمُ الْأَنْبِيَاءَ بِغَيْرِهَا. That's what they would do. So because their belief was that prophets could lie, prophets could fabricate, prophets could basically make up things. So any things they didn't like of a prophet, they would then hatch plans, make plans to get rid of that prophet and kill that particular prophet. So that's their belief, that's their aqidah. Let's have a look at the Christians. Now the Christians, they believe in prophethood as well. And they also believe that prophethood is from the Banu Israel. But a slight difference is that they say that besides Isa alayhi salam and besides his disciples, they're only them, i.e. the 12 disciples and Isa alayhi salam, only they are sinless and ma'soom. But the other prophets can commit sins, they can lie, they can fabricate, they can do this, they can do that. And also, as all of you know, that many Christians also believe that Isa alayhi salam to be a son of God. So just to clarify that in Islam, as we are explaining before, Mufti Sahib was explaining about the Sirat al-Mustaqim, the straight path. In Islam we believe that Islam is the straight path. We believe all prophets, we respect them, they're all ma'soom. But we don't go overboard and start considering them to be light or to be angels and so on. We consider prophets to be human beings. And more importantly, we do not consider them to be parts of Allah, juz of Allah, like in terms of to be son of God or this and that. We don't believe in that like other religions do. So that is regarding prophethood. And just very quickly, the next point about resurrection. Now, the mushriks, as you know, the mushrikeen of Makkah, as mentioned in many places in the Holy Quran, they do not believe in resurrection. Okay, so they would mock Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How can a bone, when it turns into dust, how can it resurrect that? They would not believe in that. So the mushrikeens, they do not believe in resurrection and life after death. The Jews, they believe in life after death, but they believe that Jannah and paradise is exclusive for them. They say that no one else would enter Jannah. So they say that you and I, we're not going to enter Jannah. No one else would enter Jannah besides them. Even to the extent that they say that what our forefathers committed, again, Mufti Sahib may have explained in the tafsir, in particular in the first part, it's mentioned in very detail that the forefathers, they deceived Allah, they deceived Musa alayhi salam. Their forefathers were turned into monkeys and apes and swine. They would say that, because of their bad things, because of their bad actions, we will be in hell for a few days, for 40 days, few days, 7 days and so on. Thereafterwards, we would then go to Jannah and paradise, and we would remain in paradise forever. So the Jews, they believe in resurrection, but they believe that resurrection and hereafter and Jannah and paradise is exclusively for them. Whereas the Christians, they believe in something what they call as redemption. That they believe that Isa alayhi salam, or Jesus, will redeem himself for the sins of humanity and save them from the punishment of their sins. Obviously, we'll look at this in a bit more detail, but you could do further studies. It's a concept they have called the concept of redemption. So they believe that in the hereafter they will be saved, that they're not going to go to hell, they're going to go to Jannah and paradise, but they believe through Isa alayhi salam, through Jesus, that through Jesus he will redeem humanity, and also he will save them for the sins they committed. So in Islam, we believe in hereafter, we believe in resurrection, we believe that we'll be questioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we are not like or overconfident like the Jews who say, oh yeah, definitely we're going to go to Jannah. We do say that eventually anyone who died with the kalima will enter Jannah. But if he died with the kalima but he did bad deeds and bad actions, he may go to hell firstly, he may need to stay there so that he sins, so that it could be forgiveness for his sins. And after that is all rectified, then he will eventually enter Jannah and paradise. So this is what we as Muslims and followers of the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah believe in when it comes to prophethood, risalat, and when it comes to the second point which I mentioned about resurrection and life after death. Now there's some other issues about Aqidah and beliefs, but I felt that it will be more better if I explain it under the hadith. So because this first chapter here talks about Imaan, so there will be many other aspects of Imaan which I'll look at. Also it then talks about big sins, Kaba'ir, then it talks about Taqdeer. So even though I touched on Taqdeer last week and this week, but when we look at the hadith, because obviously when you got the hadith in front of you, you can obviously look at it in a bit more detail and in a bit more thorough way. And there's also chapters about Azab-e-Qabr as well, about punishment of the grave. So I felt that it'd be better that if we continue with the hadith and look at the various aspects of Aqeedas and beliefs under the hadith itself. Now before I conclude, just want to mention one hadith before we finish. This hadith is a hadith narrated by Ibn Umar anhu, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, Al-Muslimu man salima al-Muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadihi. That a true Muslim, okay, so a true Muslim, so not just we are Muslims, by name, a non-Muslim, if you see us, will say, oh, this person got a beard, he's a Muslim, or he's got a hat, or he's wearing a jubbah, yes, he's a Muslim. But what this hadith is saying is, no, a true Muslim. So a true Muslim is someone where other Muslims are saved from his tongue, min lisanihi wa yadihi, and his hands. Now from this hadith here, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam wants to explain the signs or the qualities or the characteristics of a true Muslim. As I was saying before that, yeah, fair enough, we got the beard, we got the hat, we got this, we got that. By name we are Muslims, we got Muslim's name, we got Abdul Rahman, we got these kind of names and so on. We've got a Muslim name. But remember, Islam is not just about names or you got Muslim name, that's it. It's got to do with the heart, and also it's got to do with actions as well. And what this hadith is telling us is that a true Muslim is someone where other people are saved from his tongue. Now what I mean by saved from his tongue, i.e. that Muslim would not say anything bad about that person, would not backbite about that person, would not slander about that person, would not say kila wa qal, i.e. spread rumors about that person. And also number two, وَيَدِهِ, that Muslim, a true Muslim, is the one where other people would be saved from his hand. He's not going to hit someone, he's not going to attack someone, he's not going to push someone, he's not going to slap someone, he's not going to pull someone's ears, he's not going to harm them in that way. And in another hadith, it's got the words وَرِجْلِهِ, i.e. his feet, i.e. that person is not going to harm him through his feet or by his feet, in terms of not going to kick him, he's not going to, do a flying kick on him or something like that. He's not going to harm him in that way. But basically what I'm trying to say is, by the word richly he being mentioned, is telling us that a true Muslim is such that other Muslims would be saved. He is not going to harm other Muslims and other brothers or sisters verbally, physically, whether it's through his hand, whether it's through his legs, whether it's through his knees, whether it's through whatever, he's not going to harm another Muslim brother or a sister. So that is a sign of a true Muslim and a true believer. Now when we look at this hadith, subhanAllah, it tells us the importance, the severity of all the bad things which we do nowadays in terms of backbiting, slandering and so on. Inshallah, as I was saying, there's a chapter coming up later about the gravest sins, the biggest sins, the major sins. And in the list you will find ghibah, backbiting, slandering in particular. These are always considered to be grave and major and big sins. So what we can understand from here is that, because subhanAllah, when we look through the hadith, we realize that if your tongue is correct, Iman, your heart, everything would be correct. I'll just explain a hadith that is mentioned in Musnad Ahmad, that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that a person's Iman cannot be upright or correct unless his heart is correct. Okay, so that's understandable that your heart has to be correct, then your Iman will be strong and correct. But then the hadith goes on to say that a person's heart cannot be correct unless his tongue is correct. So what we can understand from that hadith is that we need to rectify our tongue, make sure that the only time we open our mouth, we open it when we are saying something constructive, when we are speaking the truth, when we are not backbiting about someone, when we are talking about the Quran or the Sunnah, when we are remembering Allah, when we are doing dhikr and tasbih of Allah. That's when we should be opening our mouths. Things which doesn't concern us, we should not open our mouths regarding that. So that is the first part of the hadith, that a true Muslim is someone where other people would be free from his tongue, from his hands. Very quickly, the next part of the hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam goes on to say, "Wal muhajir man hajara ma nahallahu anhu." Who is a muhajir? Now muhajir, you've heard this term before in lectures, in bayans. Many people use this word, or he's a muhajir. Muhajir from Makkah to Medina. This Sahabi is a muhajir, the muhajiruns, the Ansar. Now muhajir are those who, during Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time, who left Makkah and they migrated to Medina. And why did they migrate to Medina? Because they wanted to save their Iman, because they were being tortured and so on. Now as mentioned in the hadith, La hijrata ba'd al-fathi, which means that form of hijrah during Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's time, i.e. from Makkah to Medina, that's finished now, that's gone after the conquest of Makkah. But there is still another form of migration and hijrah prevalent in this day and age. And that form of hijrah, which is still allowed and still viable, is that hijrah and migration where a person is leaving a town or a city or a country where sins and gunas are taking place, and he migrates to a country or a city or a place where he can freely act upon his deen and his religion. That form of hijrah is still there. So you know the hijrah of that hijrah where, just say you're living in a country where you can't practice your religion, you are committing sins, your wives cannot do their hijab or their burqa, and you leave that place and then you go to a place when you can do all these things, that form of hijrah and migration is there. So that is the meaning of hijrah and migration. Now going back to the hadith here, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that a true muhajir is that person who leaves out sins, who leaves out guna. The same way that hijrah which that person did, where he left city A and he went to city B, or he left country A and then he went to country B, that hijrah is still there, but the purpose or the reason why he did that hijrah was to stay away from sins. So there is another form of hijrah which we can do. Just say, for example, we can't actually just pack our bags, leave this country and then go to another country, but there is another form of hijrah which we can do. And that, as mentioned in the hadith here, is ma nahallahu anhu, or man hajara ma nahallahu anhu, which means to leave out the prohibitions and the sins, i.e. things which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has prohibited us from to do, i.e. like obviously adultery, backbiting, slandering, disrespecting parents, things which are under our control, which we can do. Then by abstaining from that, then that is also considered to be a form of hijrah, a form of migration. And as everybody knows, the reward of migration, muhajir, is tahdimu ma kana qabla. If we look at it from the general text of the hadith, all our previous sins will be forgiven. Inshallah, we'll leave it there for this week. May Allah give us the tawfiq. What has been said, wa akhiru da'wan, alhamdulillah.